until the Watergate scandal forced Richard Nixon's resignation in 1974. Jimmy Carter, a Washington outsider who offered himself as a Redeemer president, reintroduced matters of faith and belief into the arena of public discourse. For a variety of reasons, not least the rise of the religious right in the late 1970s, many of the same evangelical voters who had helped propel Carter into office turned emphatically against him 4 years later in favor of Ronald Reagan, who also claimed to be an evangelical Christian. Since 1980, with the single exception of the Clinton presidency, candidates who have made forthright professions of evangelical faith and who have enjoyed the support of religious right leaders have occupied the Oval Office. Even the Clinton aberration might be explained by Bill Clinton's extraordinary skills as a politician and his ability to speak the evangelical language of sin and redemption. This despite the fact that leaders of the religious right utterly despised him and did everything in their power to discredit him. George W. Bush's narrow victory in 2000 can be viewed as an attempt by voters to cleanse the Oval Office of Clinton's personal transgressions, just as Carter's election in 1976 represented an attempt to purge the nation of Nixon-era corruptions. All of this is not to suggest that faith or religion played a singular, much less a decisive role in any of these elections. Not at all. Every campaign, every presidency rises and falls on the waves of political circumstances and historical vicissitudes, as well as such nebulous factors as personal charisma, economic conditions, and the shifting sands of public opinion. Still, the fact remains that Americans were content to disregard religion as a criterion for voting in 1960, whereas by 2004, they had come to expect candidates fully to disclose their religious views and to expound on their personal relationship to the Almighty. This book attempts to trace that transition. I should also say a word about what this book is not. It does not pretend to be a comprehensive history of how religion has shaped the presidency or presidential campaigns from 1960 to 2004. I do not scrutinize, for example, how every attitude toward, say, civil rights or women's rights, or every policy decision affecting the Middle East might or might not be dictated by a president's religious convictions. Nor do I devote much attention to polling data to determine popular attitudes. It's not that I distrust polls or pollsters. Well, maybe I do. As Mark Twain once observed, the world is rife with lies, damned lies, and statistics. So much depends on how questions are formulated, and I think it's especially dicey to determine people's religious attitudes because nomenclature tends to be fraught. Who is or is not a Christian, for instance, or an evangelical? I'll leave the numbers to the statisticians and to the political scientists. Nor do I talk much about civil religion, the conflation of religious devotion with nationalistic symbols. It's not that I dispute the existence of civil religion, it's just that discussion of the matter long ago passed from exhaustive to tiresome, and I don't think, frankly, that it adds all that much to this account. I offer instead a narrative that tells the story not only of the politicization of religion in the final decades of the 20th century, but also the religionization of our politics. I reflect, finally, on the implications of this shift, which has reverberated in both worlds, religious and political. Although I recognize that no author can be entirely objective, I have tried very hard to be fair. For those anxious to sort out my sympathies, I'll make it easy. I consider myself an evangelical Christian whose understanding of the teachings of Jesus points him toward the left of the political spectrum. I'm no fan of the religious right, whose leaders, I believe, have distorted the gospel, the good news of the New Testament, and have defaulted on the noble legacy of 19th century evangelical activism, which invariably took the part of those less fortunate. I am not arguing, however, that people of faith should not be